Good evening. This is a regular City Commission meeting for the City of Largo for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you, if you have a cell phone, please turn it to silent or off so that we don't have any interruptions. We're going to begin tonight's meeting with an invocation given by Largo Fire Department Chaplain Will Murphy, and then if you could please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much for having me this evening. If y'all bow your heads, I'd like to pray. Heavenly Father, you tell us in your word that in our hearts we plan our course, but you will direct our path. I pray we seek you for guidance, just like this great nation did with its founding fathers before us. Let us not make decisions based on what we know or feel, but let us act upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. We place this meeting in your hands and our minds in your hands so that you will direct us. I pray also for all the employees and especially for those first responders who risk their lives day in and day out to protect our citizens. I also pray for peace and protection for all of our citizens that we are called to serve. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain, and thank you for your continued service to our firefighters here in Largo. The first item on the agenda is we have a couple ceremonial items. We're going to start with Team Member of the Quarter recognition.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Today I've got two team members of the quarter that we're going to present an award to. The first one we have is Juanita Holliday, Rec Leader 1 for the RPA Department. Juanita is an asset to the Southwest team. I could go on for days on how lucky we are to have her as a team member in our child care program, but I will narrow it down a bit for you. Juanita came to the Southwest team about 18 months ago when she had recently moved to Florida. Juanita adopted and hit the ground running from day one, learning her role, and many times other roles to help whenever she is needed. Juanita serves in our before and after care program, and if you saw the life-size train she created for an event, you will understand her passion for her job. Juanita goes above and beyond and praises our programs everywhere she goes, recruits great people to apply for jobs at RPA, and recommends patrons to attend events daily. She is a model employee for the City of Largo, displaying every value daily. Juanita's passion for her position, her coworkers, and the children she cares for is unmatched. The summer camp evaluation alone praised her name specifically more often than not. We look forward to the many lives that she will continue to touch as an employee in the coming years. Congratulations, Juanita. Next up, we have Frankie Perez, trades worker 2 for the Public Works Department. Frankie has been a pleasure to work with since his very first day as our daytime custodian. He comes in with a smile, greets all staff and patrons, and always asks if there was anything we needed while he was on site. He kept our building looking amazing and went above and beyond with pride in his work. He would even tighten a loose screw if he saw it, which was not in his job title at the time. Frankie has since transitioned to a trades worker 2 and continues his legacy of doing big things. Frankie recently came on our cleaning day to paint, but when he was finished, asked if there was anything else we needed, and even did more than assigned. Frankie always follows every project from start to finish, even when parts of it are out of his scope. Frankie lives the values of the city every day and is always keeping us in the loop as to what plans are next, when he will come back, where his project left off, and more. He is personable, and we cannot imagine our building without his touch. Thank you, Frankie, for being who you are, even if you aren't a Bucks fan. Congratulations. And then, yeah, you can. Yep.
Thank you.
You.
Congratulations. Next, we're going to get some national and international recognition for our COVID communication plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Lauren Fatkin, and I am the Communication Strategist for the City of Largo's Communication and Engagement Division. I'm here with our C&E team, who's going to be joining us virtually in a minute, to share with you not one, but 4 awards for our COVID communications efforts. Emergency communications during COVID was not only the work of the communications team, but of an organic group of interdepartmental team members that stepped up to the plate where they saw an opportunity to help keep our community connected and informed. The leadership from the EMPC, specifically Chief Cody Johnson and Recovery Manager Maggie Pollock, as well as team members from across multiple departments, including the library, community development, and recreation, parks and arts, and more, all came together to serve our community and organization through a global pandemic. These teams were dedicated in sharing important information and resources in a timely manner, as well as providing engagement opportunities and generating input from team members and the community to inform city services. And now I'm honored to share our acknowledgments for these efforts awarded by the following organizations. First up, we have 3CMA. 3CMA is known as the City County Communications and Marketing Association. It is the nation's premier network of local government communicators. Each year, 3CMA holds a competition called the Vidi Awards for creative and successful marketing programs. For the 2020 Savies, Largo took home the Award of Excellence for our COVID communications in the newly added COVID crisis communications category. Oh, there they are. Now you can see them up on Zoom. Kate's holding up our Award of Excellence right now. Our in-house communications effort, interdepartmental collaboration, and consistent approach to community and team engagement impressed the judges. One even said, "It would have been easy to just begin sending out information, but Largo took a strategic approach that clearly helped in identifying messaging, developing graphic elements, and getting everything out to the community." Excuse me. Judges also praised the excellent video production and extremely creative, very informative graphics. Great job to our very talented multimedia and graphics team. Next, I would like to present to you all the Hermes Creative Award. We had won a Platinum Award for this competition, which is an international competition honoring what this organization calls the messengers of the information revolution. Each year, competition judges evaluate the creative industry's best advertising, marketing, and communications programs. And the panel for the .com Awards also honored us with another Platinum Award for the COVID Communications Plan. .com Awards is another international competition honoring excellence in digital communication and creativity. Last, but certainly not least, the Vidi Awards. This international competition honors video excellence in a digital world. Largo was awarded a Gold Vidi Award for the positively amazing virtual canine demo. This video is the vision of Largo PD and as a creative way to give Largo school children the thrill of the Largo Police Canine Unit in action during the 2020 virtual Great American Teach-In. Thank you so much to our Largo Police and multimedia team for working so hard to deliver this to our schools during the pandemic. Overall, Largo surpassed nearly 500,000 entries globally with both Platinum Awards from the Hermes and .com competitions, 25 entries for Vidi, and over 800 entries in the 3CMA competition. Through such a year as 2020, our organization and teams gained insight to innovative tools that we still use to this day, such as webinars to help internal and external audiences stay informed, enhancing leisure services through digital programming, and creating informational and educational videos, designing templates and online collaboration tools for consistent signage and graphics, and receiving support from teams in our community development, economic development, library, and housing to ensure community resources were up to date. Although the communications engagement team organized the communications process, these awards belong to the organization and professionals throughout Team Largo for pivoting our roles and working to keep our community informed of changing guidelines, stay-at-home orders, grants and business support, and most importantly, vaccines. From the direct line of communication from the EMPC and recovery manager to those updating the website at all hours of the night, you deserve the thank you. To the team members that adapted programming from virtual stream and on-demand content to the neighborhood parades, you kept us connected to the community during this difficult time. For monitoring the evolving state and county grants to implementing Largo's own assistance program, the community development team deserves to share in our recognition. Team members are what make Largo a great place to work, and we thank you for helping make communication successful. And to our City Commission, thank you for your ongoing support in keeping the community connected and your continued strategic focus on community pride, public health and safety, and sustainability. We encourage our community to stay informed and find resources from hurricane preparedness to COVID vaccines at largo.com/connect, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys do amazing work. Congratulations on the accolades. And I have Zoom background envy now because they all have really cool Zoom backgrounds. Next, we have a few proclamations. We're going to start with Hispanic Heritage Month.
Whereas during National Hispanic Heritage Month, the City of Largo recognizes the many contributions of Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx Americans to all facets of life, and celebrates the broad diversity of cultures and heritage of this population, and whereas Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx residents comprise 11.5% of Largo's population and is the second largest and one of the fastest growing ethnic groups in the city, and whereas Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx Americans have led a profound and positive influence in our community through their commitment to family, faith, hard work, and community service, and have shaped our national character with century-old traditions that reflect the customs of their proud history. And whereas these Americans, who represent cultures beyond the United States from Spain to Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, have worked to overcome many challenges, often in the face of discrimination and prejudice, and have shown great courage and determinations in contributing to their personal goals and to the betterment of the United States. Now, therefore, I, Woody Brown, Mayor of the City of Largo, Florida, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim the month of September 15th through October 15th, 2021, as Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Largo, in conjunction with the celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month, and in honor of this year's theme, Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope, which inspires us to reflect on the power of resilience.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City leadership, and community members. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Feliz Mes de la Herencia Hispana. I'll be including a brief summary of my remarks in Spanish this evening. This month is an opportunity to celebrate, share, and perhaps learn something new about this diverse population. I wanted to take a moment this evening to acknowledge a few terms used in tonight's proclamation, specifically Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx or Latinx. All of these terms have unique differences and are connected to how individuals identify within this population. Este mes es una oportunidad para celebrar, compartir y quizás aprender algo nuevo de esta población diversa. Quería tomar un momento esta noche para reconocer algunos términos usados en la proclamación de hoy día. Específicamente, hispano, latino, latina, latinx o latinx. Todos estos términos tienen diferencias únicas y están conectados a cómo identifican individuos en esta población. As a city that is continuously striving to learn, grow, and be inclusive and welcoming to all community members, we chose to include all of those terms in this year's proclamation. There are many articles and interesting perspectives for those that want to learn more about these linguistic differences, including debate on the topic. Como una ciudad que siempre quiere estar aprendiendo, creciendo y siendo inclusivo, decidimos usar los tres términos reconociendo que existen muchas perspectivas y debate en este asunto. We appreciate each of our community members and neighbors that are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. and look forward to sharing various ways to celebrate. We'll be doing that through our social media accounts and news items. Whether that is checking out a new book or podcast at the Largo Public Library, participating in a local event, or checking out the many incredible resources available online highlighting the vibrant history, culture, and people. We are also excited to share that this year, Largo's Central Park Performing Arts Center, CPAC, has a special promotion for 2 upcoming Latin artist performances, Tito Puente Jr. and Jose Feliciano. Tickets are buy one, get one for 50% off for those that mention Hispanic Heritage Month when purchasing over the phone with the box office at CPAC during Hispanic Heritage Month, which is between September 15th to October 15th. So this has already been posted up on the website. Apreciamos a todos celebrando este mes con nosotros y esperamos compartir otras formas de celebrar como un nuevo libro de la Biblioteca de Largo, un evento local o explorar información sobre el Internet. También nuestro Performing Arts Center tiene una promoción especial para 2 conciertos de artistas latinos, Tito Puente Jr. y José Feliciano. Los boletos son compra uno y compra el segundo boleto por 50% descuento para ellos que mencionan Hispanic Heritage Month cuando compran por el teléfono del box office entre 15 de septiembre y el 15 de octubre. Community members can stay connected with us through social media and e-news by visiting largo.com/social. Los miembros de la comunidad pueden estar conectados con nosotros de media social y e-news por visitar largo.com social. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
Y disculpa, this proclamation will be posted at the Largo Public Library and also in City Hall. We'll have one in each for folks to be able to read as well on their own. So esta proclamación va a estar en la biblioteca y también en City Hall.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a proclamation declaring October 1st Manufacturing Day.
Whereas City of Largo, Florida recognizes the importance of manufacturing to our regional, state, and global economy, and whereas manufacturing represents 5.7% of the state's GDP as evidenced by the more than 21,000 business establishments employing over 387,000 Floridians, or 4% of the state's total workforce, paying an average of $66,070 salary per employee, and whereas manufacturing is a desirable targeted industry in Pinellas County, representing $10.6 billion in total sales, $7.3 billion in exports, and over 32,000 employees, positively contributing to the economy throughout the community, and whereas manufacturing is a significant creator of jobs and prosperity in Largo, with 143 manufacturing companies employing in excess of 1,700 employees, making a wide variety of products from medical equipment and supplies to pharmaceuticals, cleaning compounds, boats, and electrical equipment, and whereas manufacturers support the community's tax base in order to help fund important city services and infrastructure, provide outstanding employment opportunities with both high wages and great benefits, make investments into buildings and the workforce, and provide essential goods, allowing them to be an economic development driver in the community, and whereas the ability to successfully address short-term and long-term workforce development relies upon expanding a positive perception of the manufacturing industry as a career choice, and whereas the City of Largo routinely sees the positive contributions of our local manufacturers and appreciates and thanks them for their continued commitment to the communities and clientele they serve, and now therefore I, Woody Brown, Mayor of the City of Largo, Florida, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim October 1st, 2021, the first Friday of October, as Manufacturing Day, and we encourage all residents to join us in recognizing the critical role manufacturing plays in our regional, state, and global economy.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commission. National Manufacturing Day is observed annually on the first Friday of October. This special day was created to bring awareness to the reality of modern manufacturing and to provide manufacturers the opportunity to connect with future generations and take charge on the public image of manufacturing. By working together, manufacturers will address their collective challenges so they can help their communities and future generations thrive. The Central Pinellas Chamber of Commerce is promoting Manufacturing Day to help ensure careers in manufacturing. The Chamber, manufacturing partners, and the City of Largo desire to bring more awareness to this essential industry that provides good jobs and good benefits. This year, through the Chamber, Pinellas Technical College will be hosting a tour with Largo Middle School on Manufacturing Day itself. They will be taking a tour of Chemco and of Pinellas Technical College campus to highlight the programs they offer. And earlier today, the Chamber partners, mayor, and city commissioners had a little photo op in honor of the proclamation. The goal of these events is to reach more students and encourage them to enter the industry. For more information on the Chamber, you can visit centralchamber.biz. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the Chamber for continuing to celebrate the manufacturers here that we have in central Pinellas County and specifically Largo, but thank you as well.
Yep, thank you.
Next, we'll have a proclamation supporting October as National Cybersecurity Month.
Whereas the City of Largo recognizes that it has a vital role in identifying, protecting its citizens from, and responding to cybersecurity threats that may have significant impact to our individual and collective safety and privacy, and whereas critical infrastructure sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems and technology to support financial services, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems, and whereas cybersecurity education and awareness is crucial for everyone, including large corporations, small businesses, financial institutions, schools, government agencies, the home user, and anyone who connects to the internet, and whereas monitoring your accounts, being conscientious of what you share online, keeping computer software up to date, creating unique passwords and changing them regularly, installing antivirus programs and firewalls, and using mobile devices safely are ways you can protect yourself from phishing, viruses, malware, and loss of sensitive data. And whereas maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us has a critical role to play, and awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of City of Largo's information, infrastructure, and economy. And now, therefore, I, Woody Brown, Mayor of the City of Largo, Florida, and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim that the City of Largo is officially supporting National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the City of Largo and encouraging all citizens to learn about cybersecurity and to put that knowledge into practice in their homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses.
Each year, the month of October is recognized as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Cybersecurity plays a vital role in protecting our city, our residents, and the nation's infrastructure. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. This proclamation by the mayor affirms the city's support and commitment to help raise cybersecurity awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Hansel. Next, we're going to have citizens comment. If you'd like to speak about something that's on the agenda outside of the consent docket, please wait until that item comes up, and each person will have 3 minutes. Do we have any cards?
Yes, I have 11 cards tonight. First is Pat Byrne.
Good evening. Pat Byrne, 700 Starkey Road, Largo, Florida. You know, inquiry can be an intimidating term. You think of science research or political inquisitions. There is another way to think about this. What actions can you take with the information that you already have? First, you can ask the HR department to develop an all-purpose employee grievance procedure. There is no excuse for the City of Largo lacks this entirely. Second, institutional memory is quite important. You can write a memo for the file documenting your concerns and the concerns of the citizens about how this removal was handled. Why can be debated. The how cannot be. The how did avoidable harm and violated precedent and procedure within the city itself. In 2019, Tampa Bay newspapers questioned this commission's superficial review of top management. It's in the newspaper. At that time, you dismissed the complaints of a different director. Third, you can give Joan Byrne a public written apology for the unprofessional public notice of dismissal. The city attorney, your city attorney, put in writing in the standard severance agreement that Largo would not denigrate former employees. Here, management not only did so undeniably and falsely. Fourth, you have enough information to instruct the city manager to end the favoritism and suppression of dissent, neither of which are HPO in any way, shape, or form. We can debate how much and with consequence, but the existence of these phenomena is undeniable. There's no debating that healthy organizations avoid even the mere perception of such phenomenon. In sum, there are at least 4 things you can do and should do immediately to benefit the organization. It is only going to get harder and harder to explain why you won't do anything. I apologize for a vacation hiatus. I will see you again October 19th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Curtis Holmes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commission. I noticed nobody won the coveted John Carroll Award. But anyway, thank you, John. This goes back about 8 years. I was deeply involved with, I was doing ride-alongs with the EMS units, and I couldn't help but notice many of these calls, they waited for Sunstar to show up. And I thought that that's really odd. Why don't we just do the transport? So I brought it up before the commission and the city manager and the then fire chief. And I said, why don't we do the transport and be done with it? Plus, they could pay us for it. I believe back then was $500 was the fee for an ambulance. And I heard all the excuses why it shouldn't be done. And I mean, it went all the way from, if we're doing the transport, you're tying up a crew, you're tying up a truck at, the emergency room. And so we just let the thing go. We did win the other battle, though, when the county finally decided to pay the department that was doing the heavy lifting on a call. That's neither here nor there. I recently found out that, again, the city of Largo and the other municipalities, the EMS units are doing the transport. And it's because Sunstar apparently has a personnel problem. I know the city manager is aware of this, and I'm sure that the city manager has briefed all of you on it. If he hasn't done it, he should. My question is, why don't we go back before the county commission? They want us to do the transport, not a problem. But give us the $750 then, because what they're doing, we're doing the transport, they're keeping the $750 and they're splitting it between the county and Sunstar, although Sunstar's not doing anything. And I think it's only fair that municipalities get together and just, have a little come to Jesus chat with the county, that this is where the money should go, not the way it's been going. I mean, why is Sunstar getting paid for doing nothing? We're doing the heavy lifting. Clearwater's doing the heavy lifting. St. Pete's doing it. The municipalities are doing it. We are the ones who should be paid for it. So I hope you address this, and I hope you contact other municipalities about it, because, we are greater than the sum of our parts. Lastly, I noticed the $50 million being borrowed for the city hall that I still say we don't need. Spend half that amount of money fixing this thing up. And just because Clearwater and Dunedin are getting trophies does not mean we need to spend $50 million getting a trophy for the city of Largo. Spend half that amount, fix this building. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Al Paul.
Yes, hi. This is to the mayor and the members of the city commissioners. This is regards for, it's concerning the Brookside Villas, okay? And this is from Barry Winston. He's a resident of South End Brookside Villa and would like for you to reconsider your vote made on September 7th to allow public access to and from Northwest Park, directly behind our HOA. Using our sidewalk, this affects not only the 2 homes on either side of the walkway, but everyone in the Brookside community. That easement and all surrounding common areas and retention ponds are maintained by our HOA, in which we pay a quarterly fee for ground maintenance. We are a community made up of retired homeowners, and I understand that the sidewalk was originated and installed by Gulf Wind Homes in 2016 to allow Brookside residents access to the park. Though we were told this was a private sidewalk, the gate to the park was open to the public, and the crime in the small community increased substantially. This resulted in kids on dirt bikes racing around and retention ponds, people wandering in our backyards, congregating on the banks of our ponds, and leaving trash on the grounds. We also dealt with vandalism and incidents of homelessness. Okay. So Largo Police Department was called on several occasions, and many of our residents installed cameras and floodlights. We have witnessed many questionable activities in Northwest Park over the last 5 years. So it only makes sense to remove the sidewalk easement and lock the gate to the park. I'm asking the city commissioner to vacate the 20-foot wide public sidewalk drainage and accept an access easement between Lot 17 and 18 of Brookside Villa in the primary interest of the safety of our residents. We can then move forward and plan to remove the sidewalk. Okay, so, my name is Al Paul, and I've only been there about a year and a half, and, it was told to me that that Brookside owned that easement part over there. Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Next speaker is Louis Giocondo.
Hello, Lou Giocondo, 571 14th Street, Brookside Villas. We're going to hear from a lot of people today. Our attorney is here, and he's going to speak, but most of you, and I thank you all for it, have talked to me, have come out and met with some of us, and you pretty well understand the reasons why we wanted to remove the sidewalk and why we don't believe this ever was an access, but that's here nor there. What I wanted to tell you tonight are the reasons why we tried to leave the gate open and the access to the park. When we moved in, we didn't know the people in the neighborhood, and we wanted to be good neighbors, and it was a decision of the board, not just mine, to leave the gate open even though our builder told us it was ours to lock, and we did. We left it open. We started having problems. People just couldn't stay off the private property, as Al just said. They were in the ponds, they were in our backyards, they were everywhere. We went as far as to make 2 of these signs. Commissioner Carroll, I'll show it to you. Okay. The sign simply says that it's private property. The gate access is provided by Brookside Villas HOA. Please respect the private property and that the ponds are private property. I would have thought a sign like this would let people know that we're trying to be nice, we're trying to let you come through here, but you gotta just keep going. You can't be playing in our ponds and stuff. It didn't work. Finally, we had no choice but to have another board meeting and a vote, and we locked the gate. And it's been locked now for 3 years. And I asked the commission to reconsider your vote from the last meeting and allow us to vacate this access and remove this sidewalk. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Sean Yesner.
Good evening. I am the attorney for Brookside Villas, and so you're going to hear from a lot of Brookside Villas residents. What we're asking, like you've heard, we need a commissioner that voted in the negative at the last meeting to reconsider to get this back on the agenda at the next commission meeting. So I wanted to clear up a couple of things that I heard at the last commission meeting. Did the neighbors know that they were buying something with public access? And the answer simply is no. You're going to hear that time and time again. This actually turns on a very nuanced reading of the plat. And when you look at the plat, the surveyor notes conflict with the dedication. The dedication says it is private. The surveyor notes say it's public. That's where the dispute lies. The city managers believed it was private. The developer represented it as private. You're going to hear that a lot. The Largo police believed it was private. And you know who reads their closing documents? I've been doing real estate law now almost 25 years. I can tell you the properties I bought, I haven't read the plat. I've relied on what's been told to me. I've relied on the title insurance and the title commitment. Second thing I heard was that this was the desire potentially of one person, the president, who you just heard from, Mr. Giacondo. Well, the president speaks for the board speaks for the HOA. The HOA is here tonight in support. In fact, if you're here from Brookside Villas, raise your hand or stand up. That's not just the president wanting to close off a gate. That's the entire association wanting to vacate this easement. The last thing I heard was safety and liability concerns, and there was a comment that 14 trespassing calls in 5 years is not much. That's about 3 a year. I can tell you I moved out and went to college when I was 17. That was almost 31 years ago now. In my 31 years living alone, I've never made a trespassing call. So I would say that 14 calls in 5 years is actually quite a lot. And it's probably been more than that that's been unreported. Also, the retention pond on the property. Whose responsibility is that? You've heard people are swimming in the retention pond. Someone gets hurt in that retention pond or, God forbid, drowns. Whose liability is that? Vacating the easement will resolve that. There are issues with locking and unlocking the gate. And then the last thing you heard, in fact, I think if I recall, the city is still unable to get someone out there to lock and unlock it on a regular basis. And then the last thing, removal of the sidewalk was recommended to prevent erosion and prevent additional repair expenses to the association. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Carol Devine.
Hello. I just don't want to make this redundant, but everything that has been said, I will have to agree with. And as a single woman living on this property, I'm very, a little bit wary about people jumping in over my property or into our property. We have a lot of elderly and single, I shouldn't say elderly, but we have people in our golden years. And I would hope that you would change your vote, and that we would like to keep that gate locked and remove that walkway, because all that's doing is inviting people to walk through our property. And I just have to say one last thing is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Irene Moraz.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know about living on the far end of Brookside Villas, not near the sidewalk. I've witnessed a couple climbing over the fence from the park, walking along the ponds, and then when there was a loud clap of thunder, having to scramble over the white fence to get away from the rain. And I understand there was some damage to the fences. In 2019, a few months after my husband died, I was sitting in the living room in the dark watching morning TV when I sensed a figure outside, and I looked, and there was this young, slender black woman with her face pressed against the lanai screen. And so I looked at her for a while, and then I got up, and as I got up, I scared her. She ran away, and I went after her. I went next door to see if my neighbor had caught her image on her security camera, but it wasn't functioning. So I looked around the neighborhood, tried to see if I could see her anywhere, and I didn't see her. I called Lou to let him know of the incident because he had had something like that. He had a lady that slept in his lanai overnight. So days went by. It was longer than a week. And neighbors that summer in Maine returned to their house, and coincidentally, their neighbor had come back from working outside the state. She had captured in her ring the image of this young woman that had left in the morning, returned at night for about 5 days, camping out in their lanai. And when they had returned, she was gone. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Colette Silibardi.
Good evening. I am the property manager for Brookside Villas, and I have been managing it since the beginning when it was turned over in 2017. And since then, we've dealt with nothing but vandalism of our gate. We've receive phone calls in the middle of the night. As you can witness, some of these women, they're frightened because there's people going up and down the sidewalk, they're walking around the ponds. But besides that, it's a large liability issue for an association. If anybody trips and falls on that sidewalk, it's not the city's, it's the responsibility of the homeowners that own that sidewalk. Also, we've had problems with erosion on the pond, and we did hire an engineer in 2019, and he came out and he discovered that the way the water and the sidewalk was developed, it's causing erosion on the left-hand side of that sidewalk. So there's many reasons why we want to eliminate the sidewalk and close the access, and I hope that you listen to each story and you understand the severity of our issues out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Susan and Bill Pfeiffer.
Good evening. Just about everything that I have written down here has been said already, but one thing that I really want to stress is the primary concern of us addressing you this evening, Bill and I, is the safety, not only for us, but for the residents across the street in the adjacent community. They're like us. A lot of them are single men and women in their 60s, and it's not safe with that sidewalk being open. We live right next to the sidewalk, and I've seen it all firsthand. We've seen it all firsthand. We saw the motorcycle with the girlfriend on the back circling the pond. We saw people trespassing, walking through the water, trying to unlock the gate, vandalize the gate. And if you say something to them nicely, you get cursed at. They look at you and laugh, and they do whatever they want to do. The bottom line is the park's not safe. I have a perfect view of that park from my lanai. I watched the same trucks sit there for hours on end in 90-degree heat, and then I was told, we weren't there at the time, that a man was shot in the park last year due to a road rage incident. If that gate's open, I surely won't feel safe at all. So the bottom line is safety. I think that should take precedence over a gate being open. And again, 5 years, 14 times the police were called. I lived in a house for 36 years and never had to call the police for an incident such as this. And again, I see it all firsthand, I witnessed it all firsthand, and it's a huge safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Tom Loki.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I appreciate your time and you hearing our story. I live at 523 14th Street Northwest. I've been there, one of the original, well, we all are original pretty much, bought in March of 2016. That's the time of our contract. The property wasn't completed until the end of the year, and I moved in December of 2016. They've always stated what our concerns are, and they're real concerns. It's the public easement. The sidewalk looked like it's an invitation to walk down through our properties. The gate, obviously we've talked about that, and we know the gate, we know that kids and people have either climbed over it, climbed through it, climbing across the white fences all along the property. The safety issue, the security issue, and then again the liability issue that's been discussed. One thing that was stated at the last meeting that we had was that we should have known we're adult people when we bought. Well, we all bought, and I think every unit probably was sold within 3 months. In the first 2 or 3 months of 2016. At that time, there were 3 units that existed. There were 2 models and then 1 third building. All 3 of those buildings were on the north end of our property, right up next to Mellenbacher. At that time, it was never discussed about, we knew there was going to be sidewalks, we knew there was going to be fencing, but there was never any discussion about easements or public access and those kinds of things, which is what we're all here for now. It just was never discussed, and so with any one of us. So when this construction was going on, obviously those fencing weren't there yet. The sidewalks weren't there yet. I think the developer actually paved the road and put in curbing. That was being done during the process. So it took a whole year for all this to happen. So anyway, the disclosure just was not there at the time of everybody's purchase. All right. I thank you for your time. I would hope that you would reconsider addressing this issue. It's a real issue, real things with real people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mary Jackson.
Hello, Commissioners. How are you? I want to point out a couple things that might not be obvious, but should be mentioned. Lots 17 and 18 are single family because the easement is there. The rest of the property, all but one, are attached, whatever they want to call those, the villas. So also we've heard the survey said it was a public easement. Also, I want to point out that unless they become a fully gated community, people are still going to be able to reach and peek in their windows and reach the ponds. On our street, right across the way, we have people come check our car doors every night to make sure, if they can get in them. Same problem everywhere, and we're not on the park side. Also, I believe most of any damage that was done was to the fence after the gate was locked. And I did send you also today an email with pictures of the erosion and the typical distance between the homes that aren't lots 17 and 18. And the pictures of the supposed area with erosion shows no erosion, and the other side of the pond is looking much worse that I took from across the way in the park. So I suggest they don't have riding mowers mowing the lawn around the side of the banks if they want, and maybe plant some Florida native plants there that would be more used to the situation. Also, today's sign that Mr. Giacondo showed was not the one I remember, and if it's not the one that's currently up, obviously, that he's covered up with a private property additional sign, so not sure about that. Also, he did say he heard that a gate was legal, that it wasn't a public access, from Teresa Bryden, who was Largo's economic development manager. How was she involved in this? It doesn't make any sense to me that she's the authority on if it's public or not. I think that about covers it. Anyway, someone did comment that I was the only one come speaking against. You guys are scary. And no, that's point one. Part two is it's a pandemic, and it's even hard. I'm sure some of you that were elected last year know that it's hard to get anybody out in a pandemic. So I'm not the only one who cares, though, just so you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just check Zoom and see if I have anybody.
I'd like to be clear that she meant we're scary, not you guys. You guys aren't scary.
That's all the speakers, Mayor.
And then we don't need to be scared. We're not scary either. All right, next, I'd like to mention that Commissioner Carroll is joining us remotely, and I would need a vote by the commission to allow Commissioner Carroll to participate remotely.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Who was the second?
Commissioner Gerard was the motion, and Commissioner Fenger was the second.
yeah.
It was almost simultaneous, but. Next, we'll have approval of the agenda.
I'd like to pull 8.
All right, 8's pulled. We'll
Motion to
entertain a
approve.
motion.
Second.
Was that a motion, Commissioner Smith? Okay, so Commissioner Smith was a motion, second Fenger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next is approval of minutes from the regular meeting of September 7th, 2021.
Move approval?
Second.
Any changes or corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Could I hear the consent docket, please?
Item 9, authorization to apply for grant funding through the Resilient Florida Grant Program in the amount of $100,000 to update the Largo Environmental Action Plan.
Thank you. You've heard the consent docket. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent docket without commission discussion and including staff background provided in the commission packets.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 8, Commissioner Smith.
I pulled this, I'm just interested, more detailed background on it, and also knowing that our police department is supporting this. Just some general background before we move on this, because this is a topic this commission has talked about in one of our priorities.
Sure. This is a grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance for body-worn cameras, and it provides $314,000 toward the purchase of 157 for the Largo Police Department. This grant came on suddenly. This agenda item is just to bring it into compliance with the grants policy. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
This is a match 1-to-1, right? So
That's correct.
so we would match with another 314,000.
Our match is actually going to be about 1.5 million.
Oh, okay. There we go. All right. So everyone should understand that while we all support these body cameras, and I think it's a wonderful thing, that it's not cheap. It's not cheap. And it's a continuing year after year. Not the same amount.
Not the same amount.
Not the
Yeah,
same
There's
amount.
ongoing costs.
There's
That's
ongoing
correct.
expense. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I move to approve authorization to apply for grant funding through the Bureau of Justice Assistance for FY21 body-worn camera policy and implementation program to support law enforcement agencies in the amount of $314,000 for the purchase of 157 body-worn cameras for the Largo Police Department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
That was a long one. Commissioner Smith should have had to do that.
Next is item number 10.
Did a great job, Jim.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. So this is an authorization to negotiate a development agreement with 614 Woodrow Ave LLC for the property located at 614 Woodrow Ave. The property owner, and I'm going to actually pull up a map for you. Okay. There we go. Okay. The property owner, 614 Woodrow Ave LLC, is requesting authorization to negotiate the redevelopment of this property. This is a 3.03 acre property and has a future land use designation of West Bay Drive Community Redevelopment District and is within the City Home Character District. The property is currently vacant. Another image for you. And they're proposing to construct a 45-unit multifamily development with a swimming pool and clubhouse. The DA would allow for the bonus density options of the West Bay Drive CRD and would also require them to provide a conceptual site plan. Staff is requesting City Commission authorization for the Development Controls Officer, or DCO, to negotiate the development agreement with the applicant. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Any questions from the Commissioner Smith?
This is the former mobile home, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and in the DA, they kind of talk about a park that they're looking for on the northwest corner of it?
Yes, they are proposing, that is actually proposed on their conceptual site plan, which isn't attached. That would be part of the development agreement as an exhibit, and they are looking to have an open space park area as part of that concept.
Okay. The only thing I kind of miss out here, and I'd like to include, and I brought it up in the other one, was I'd like to see if we can, the sustainability that we're trying to push, and bring that in discussion with them. I'd like that to be included if possible.
Absolutely. And I will point out that they are looking to utilize the design options of the West Bay Drive, the optional design standards for the density bonus. So part of that, they get to select from almost a menu of options to choose from, and some of them are sustainable. So we'll definitely let them know we're looking for those types of more sustainable options.
And just one last thing, the design, I know that it's right by the brand new Ridge apartments that are there, correct? I'm thinking the right area?
Yes, it is very close. Yep.
Yeah. So just the design, I want it kind of a flow. I'd like to see a kind of a flow for our downtown that we're looking at as one. And you all know, because y'all have been here, what we're all looking for, but emphasize that we're trying to make this a place where people can live and walk around and stuff like that, so.
Absolutely. We'll bring that into the discussion of the terms and conditions. The architectural compatibility, we can definitely discuss, making sure there's walkable pedestrian circulation on the site too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. The memo, the staff memo says that they're requesting permission to develop a 45-unit complex, but with the density bonuses and in the request for the development agreement, they're actually looking for 90 units with the density bonuses. Is that correct? in their letter requesting it. It's our intent to pursue a development agreement with the city for development of 90 apartment units.
So that, I'm still showing 45 units for the overall site. They would get the 15 units per acre, which is the base density. And then they'd be taking advantage of the optional design standards and the affordable housing.
The end of the paragraph, right before the final paragraph, it says, therefore, it is our intent to pursue a development agreement with the city for a development of 90 apartment units. So I guess that what they've done is they've done the math on the density bonuses. And so their intent really is to look for a development agreement for 90 units, which is wonderful. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just wonder if we're clear.
Yes, that is a typo in the staff memo. So it is actually 90 units an acre. I'm sorry, they would be getting 90 units. And because it is 3.03 acres, the way that's broken down is they're using the 30 units an acre. So right. I apologize, that was written very incorrectly.
Thank you, Commissioner Gerard.
I appreciate that. I have one other question. They're talking about a minimum of 20% affordable, but that's just a minimum to earn the density bonus that they would be looking for. During the development, the negotiation of the development agreement, I would hope that they would look for a higher density, a higher percentage, or we could talk about it, because my understanding is we could actually, not that I'm asking them to, but you could actually go to 70% of, housing affordability for workforce housing and such.
Yes.
So that discussion will be part of the development agreement negotiation, right?
Yes, and they're not limited to the 20%. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I can speak to that as well. So they have not requested more than 20%. We can let them know. So the maximum density bonus that we can provide is up to that 20% affordable set aside.
Right.
So anything else would likely have to come with additional incentives to encourage them to go to a higher percentage than that.
Their letter says a minimum of 20%. So I'm wondering if they're just saying, this is the floor, but maybe in a negotiation we could go higher. I would certainly like to see that.
We can certainly ask that, and in our affordable housing program, if there's funds available at the time that they apply, they could look for some financial incentives toward that. However, our financial incentives are in place for 80% median income and below. So we'll work with them on it. We'll let them know what some of the different options are out there if they want to pair together for some additional affordable housing on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had the same question about the 90-45. So 15 is the units per acre allowable in city home in that area, is that correct? The base, 15 is the base. Okay, and I know there's a different land use, the pink mixed use. What's the density allowed in a mixed use, the base? Do you know? Like right on West Bay Drive and Clearwater Largo Road, I guess.
Actually, I don't know off.
Okay, that's all right. I'll find it. I know where to find it. Thank you. Vice Mayor Robinson.
Thank you. So just to be clear, it's 90 units that they're asking for, that they're
Yes.
going to be asking for in the development agreement, or
Yes.
you guys are going to negotiate.
That's correct.
Right? Okay, so I think that's very important when we start, talking about this. So I think Commissioner Smith originally talked about the compatibility with the kind of the flow that we're looking for in the downtown area. So I would, along with the other comments that were made, I agree with all the other comments. I mean, I would love to see, more affordable housing everywhere we could put it. I mean, unless we can provide some more incentives for them to put affordable housing in there, I doubt they're going to do it, because monetarily, it just doesn't, it unfortunately doesn't make sense for them. But I think it's very important, and Commissioner Smith, I appreciate you bringing that up, that, we're planning on building a new city hall down there that pretty much, I think is architecturally similar to the apartments at 158 Ridge. I'm hoping that the project that's going to go next door to City Hall is similar. So if we can, start having that similar look and feel downtown, that way, it talks about the walkability and just provides a destination for people. I think that can be really important when we're redeveloping the downtown area. That's all I have. I think everything else has been spoken about.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. How many stories are they allowed to do there?
We believe it's going to be 2-story units.
2-story units. So it's going to be a 2-story project or, construction with units on the first floor and second floor, or like 2-story units?
No, I think it's actually the unit is going to be both levels.
Like a townhome.
But
Okay.
I have to get confirmation when they come, the next stage of the process, we are going to ask them to come in for a pre-development review committee meeting so that we can go over a concept.
So my concern was if they're going taller than that, it's surrounded on 3 sides by single-family 1- and 2-story homes. So I know that there would be some buffering and step down to those homes, but if it's 2-story, that's not necessary. I'd be surprised if you can fit 90 2-story properties in there, but that's why you guys are the professionals, and you talk to them about that. Commissioner Finger.
Thank you. Further on the discussion of architectural design and wanting a certain look for downtown, is that something we would have to actually put into writing and have just have a separate, I don't want to say code, but just in my background, it's generally been like that we have to say that this area is, XYZ as far as what it's to look like. Because, we can't really tell people otherwise, we can't tell them what it looks like. What we want is nice, but until we have that to show them that this is it, how would we address that?
So the West Bay Drive plan actually does have specific requirements that they are going to have to comply with. And so that does help us a little bit with the design and architecture of the actual buildings themselves. But having the development agreement in place also enables us to go above and beyond what's in the plan. So if we choose to have specific terms asking them to be architecturally designed to, look like something else, we can actually request that as part of the development agreement process.
Sure. In any other development, though, I guess we just have to see as it comes to us, or is that just something we want to?
Well, we do require, elevations are actually a requirement in both of the CRDs. We do require them to provide elevations. Typically, unless they're asking for the density bonus, I'm not sure that you'd always see all of the projects that get built, but it does come through when it goes through the design site plan review steps. We do ask for those elevations, and those get approved as part of the final submittal package before they get issued a development order. So we just want to make sure that they they don't just have blank walls on the sides of the buildings, and that they're oriented towards the streets and they have appropriate window coverage on the buildings. So we do look at that, especially in the CRDs.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Robinson.
Thank you. And just real quick, after you guys have negotiated the development agreement, it'll come back to the commission. At that time, not necessarily elevation, but a proposed, concept of what this project is going to look like. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm comfortable with 45 units, and I think, to the mayor's point, 90 units is a whole different story. In a lot, it used to be a mobile home park. So, that's a whole different, we're talking a completely different conversation, in my opinion. So, also was
There
confused.
may not be enough room. I mean,
I just, it seems like we're putting a lot of stuff in a small area. I mean, if they think it can fit, fantastic. But I definitely want to see it. And how does it fit into the neighborhood? Because obviously we're, you know, in the future plans, we would love to have some taller development along Clearwater Largo Road. That could be the step-down buffer before it gets a single house. And that's fantastic. But, you know, piling 90, my other question was going to be, how many units, if anybody knows, are in the 158 Ridge? Does anybody know the answer to that?
29.
Is it
29.
29? I mean, that's a much smaller parcel. I understand that.
Third
but-
the size, roughly.
Okay, so I mean, I guess you could fit them in there. But that's 2 stories though, top and bottom, or is it?
No, it's 2 stories.
It's too small.
It is 2 stories, but I'm saying, is there units on the top and the bottom in 158?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right,
I don't know for sure.
I'm not guaranteeing, but
I don't either. That's probably irrelevant to what I'm talking about, but anyhow, just look forward to seeing the design when it comes back to us. I mean, I you know, have no problem moving forward so you guys can have that discussion, but it might be a different discussion when it comes back.
And I will say, Commissioner, we haven't finalized any of the concept with them, and it's very early in the first stage of negotiation. So what we can do is we can bring back more of those questions in terms of height. Staff isn't positive that it's too, it might be more. So we'll definitely bring back the concept to share with your team after it's been through the pre-DRC.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I'm comfortable with you guys moving forward with having that conversation. That's fine. And when it comes back, I'm just saying it might be a different conversation. Depending on, they have to have some sort of concept. They know if they can fit 90 units in there, they have to have drawn that out at some point, right? So, not that we know that right now, but obviously the developer would, but for another day. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hulk.
Oh, I forgot to even push that. Actually, some of my comments were along the lines of Commissioner Robinson's. Was 90 units to me seems like a lot on that. But even you know, especially if it's this 2-story, but if you were going to do 90 units and go higher than 2, I mean, that's like right in the middle of a neighborhood. So
It would have to step down on that.
So yes, you know, you look at that and it's like, you know, we've had other situations where we've had multiple stories, and you know, you're looking in my backyard, you know, so 45 I definitely can picture there, but 90 is a little bit hard. But as Commissioner Robinson said, you know, we'll wait and see what you guys bring back to
Yeah,
us.
so there's other things that may decrease the total number of units they might be able to get on there, like floor area ratio and the stepping down onto to match the adjacent properties. So you guys will hash that out with the developer and bring us something back, I assume.
Yes, we will have a draft conceptual site plan to bring, and they are going to have to address parking, everything that's going to be required to fit on that site. So I have a feeling that staff is incorrect in the 2-story. So I want to get back with them and just make sure that we understand, you know, what's being proposed. But that will be brought back to you when we come with terms and conditions, so you have more clarity on that.
Okay, great. I would just like to say also that I know, and I encourage folks to take advantage of our density bonuses and provide affordable housing. But I think that apartments in general are workforce housing. They can be market rate apartments like are happening over on Walter Moore at Clearwater Largo Road. Those are not going through any density. I don't think they're going through any. Are they doing a density bonus?
Have a density bonus.
Okay.
They went from 15 units an acre to 40 units an acre with an affordable housing.
But he's designing that whole project to be with not a whole lot of bells and whistles in on the property. He's not going to have a pool. He's not going to have a clubhouse so that he can keep his rates, even the market rate rents, low. So he'll provide workforce housing for folks that want to rent an apartment. And that's something that we need here. We need affordable housing as well, but we need market rate rentals as well in the whole county, I think. I mean, you can't get an apartment right now. Any other questions or comments?
I move to authorize the Development Controls Officer to negotiate a development agreement with the property owner, 614 Woodrow Avenue, LLC.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is item number 11.
Okay. This is authorization to negotiate a development agreement. Let me actually put up a, here we go. Authorization to negotiate a development agreement with Archway Partners for the property located at 2075 Seminole Boulevard. The agent for the property owner, Archway Partners, is requesting this authorization for the property at 2075. This is a commercial general and residential office general property. It's comprised of 7 different parcels and is 3.36 acres, with a portion of it located in the Largo Mall Activity Center. The property is currently vacant, and they are proposing to construct a 96-unit multifamily affordable housing development. The DA would allow, the development agreement would allow for the bonus density options of the Comprehensive Development Code, Chapter 14, and would allow them to go above the set-aside max of 70% in order to do 100%. If it is deemed that the development agreement is no longer required in the process, staff will not move forward on the presentation of terms and conditions for this property to City Commission. The site will move into the development review phase. Staff is requesting City Commission authorization for the DCO to negotiate a development agreement with the applicant. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Any, Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yeah, real quick. This is the property that we've been talking to the developers about, with the using SHIP money with, and that was SHIP money.
That's correct.
Okay, good. And so do they plan on developing this property regardless of whether or not those funds are being expended by the state and the city and county?
So they plan, if they do not get the 9% low-income housing tax credit, they're planning to go after the SALE program, which is another 4% tax credit program. Okay. So it's still another state program. It's just the 9% gives it better fund leveraging for their project. So either way, they're planning to go forward. There was actually an article in the Largo Leader the other day. They are building one up in Clearwater downtown concurrently as well. So they are making a presence in this area with their developments as well.
Good, that's fantastic.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I move to
Mayor?
Oh, yeah. Commissioner Carroll.
Sorry, John.
No, that's okay. I know that I have a built-in delay. But one thing, if this moves forward, and I'm assuming it will, that we just need to pay attention to is the close proximity to that Home Depot store and the amount of traffic flow that goes into that. That's the only median cut there going southbound on Seminole Boulevard to access. And we don't want to create a situation where everybody's trying to make a U-turn there to get to Home Depot that's on Seminole Boulevard. I know that's something for another discussion, but I just thought I'd bring it up early that I think that's what 21st Avenue that borders the property would bisect the two properties. And I'd be interested to know how they're going to solve that problem.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I wanted to point out, I'm really pleased that both this and the last item were new higher density housing in activity centers. That's the whole point of having the activity centers and allowing for higher density and preserve our neighborhoods and have centers with higher density housing, activities, employment, and better pedestrian connectivity. And that's something we're working on. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the Development Controls Officer to negotiate a development agreement with Archway Partners.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next up is item number 12.
Sorry, I had to get my microphone on.
That's all right.
That's me, Mayor. Nikki Day, Assistant City Attorney. It's nice to see you all tonight.
What you have before you is a resolution authorizing participation in the Florida Memorandum of Understanding and formal agreements with regard to the opioid settlement, with regard to the opioid litigation that the state of Florida has been pursuing since approximately 2015. The city is not actually a party to that litigation directly. The settlement proposal was sent to all cities in the state of Florida with a population of more than 100 individuals. In your agenda memo, you have the backup on how the funds would be distributed if it is approved by the parties to the litigation. And there's essentially three funds: a local fund, a regional fund, and a state fund. The only guaranteed amounts to Largo, if the settlement is approved, is the local fund, which, as you can see in your agenda backup, could range anywhere from $39,000 to $72,000. That is based on a very complicated set of variables and varies by different pharmaceutical or manufacturer providers. The settlement funds could range from receipt in anywhere from 7 to 10 years or as many as 18 years. Any distribution from the regional fund would require a separate agreement with Pinellas County, and based on the most recent information that I have from the county attorney's office that's working on this, they are seeking to qualify as a regional county that is affected and therefore hopefully get more money to the county that could be distributed through an interlocal agreement. The use of the funds is restricted only to opioid abatement activities, and that's another reason why really partnering with the county on an initiative like this can increase the effectiveness of those activities. So if approved this evening, we will forward the executed resolution to the Florida Attorney General, and we'll report back to you if it's ultimately approved. And then the next thing that you would see at some point in time is a potential interlocal agreement with the county with regard to the regional fund. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Any questions? Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Mayor. The language in the staff memo says that the funds from the settlement can only be used for opioid abatement activities, for example, strategies, programming, and services used to expand treatment for individuals impacted by opioid use disorder or co-occurring substance abuse and mental health disorders. So I'm wondering, does this, and I'm not sure if you would know if it's been explained yet, would this also cover people with other substance abuse problems as long as they have an opioid addiction?
The information on what co-occurring instances may include is not specified with great detail in the Attorney General summary of the appropriate uses of the funds. And the memorandum of agreement itself, which is actually Exhibit A to your resolution, specifies those activities with no more detail. So if the city were to consider pursuing something like that for its use of funds, at that point in time, we may have more clarity and guidance on what those specific activities can include. But we do know that they can't include general substance abuse that's not co-occurring with an opioid abatement initiative.
Who would develop those rules?
Who would develop the parties to the settlement agreement, which would be the state of Florida and the cities and counties that are party to that litigation.
So the state's reached a potential settlement, but it's not final, so they more or less have a letter of understanding or something like that?
They have a memorandum of understanding. It's
not final. And part of their initiative to make it final is the more counties and cities in Florida that participate or that support the Memorandum of Understanding in its current form, the more likely that the state of Florida is to get an allocation. This is also a national litigation. There's other states competing for this pot of money. So the more affected cities and counties, then the more negotiating power that Florida may have in being able to fill in some of those more specific details. But you're absolutely right, Commissioner. As its current standing, it is a memorandum of understanding that's been developed, and the formal agreements have not yet been solidified.
And as far as an interlocal agreement with the county or maybe even other cities, that would be down the road from the final agreement and the. So,
correct, and that would spell out probably with much more specificity exactly what the local plan was and how it fits within the restrictions on the settlement funds.
thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions?
I move to approve resolution number 2306.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next up is item number 13.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The item before you is a first reading of a comprehensive development code amendment pertaining to fences, walls, and other man-made barriers. The Comprehensive Development Code Amendment proposed further establish development standards and regulations allowing the specific types of fences, walls, and other man-made barriers as accessory uses and where required as part of buffers for certain land use classifications. These structures are regulated by the city and require a building permit. There are 2 chapters in the Comprehensive Development Code where the requirements for these structures are outlined. That's Chapter 10, which are the landscape standards, and also Chapter 16, which are for accessory uses. In Chapter 10, fences, walls, and man-made barriers are required for proposed non-residential and multifamily uses as part of the landscape buffer requirements. The purpose of the buffer standards is to mitigate incompatibilities with the surrounding area by screening unsightly uses and structures, as well as glare, noise, parking areas, and other potential external impacts. So as this photo illustrates here, the top left photo is the backside of a strip mall that is abutting a townhouse development, and as you can see, there's a opaque PVC fence that I believe the townhome installed when they developed, because the strip mall is an older site, but you can see some of the activities that sometimes need to be buffered, as shown here with the dumpsters and illegal dumping and so forth. And then the photo in the lower portion of the site shows an industrial land use where a lot of outdoor activities and storage takes place, and where screening may be required. Next. So both chapters 10 and 16 include standards for the appropriate type materials, the opaqueness, the height and placement and orientation of these man-made barriers, and the application of the standards is primarily based on the use of the property and the use of adjacent properties, as well as the location and orientation of the structures and the proximity to roadways, and they also provide aesthetics and community character, public safety, and in some cases, sustainability. Next. So thank you.
Staff provided a presentation on the standards and regulations related to fences, walls, and other man-made barriers to the City Commission at a work session in February of 2021. And it was a consensus of the commission to have staff provide to revise a comprehensive development code and provide a definition of fence repair, flexibility in requiring permits for repairs, and clarifying orientation of the fences, and also providing the development control officer discretion for allowing chain link where commercial uses abut other commercial uses. Staff have proposed amendments for 10 subsections of the Comprehensive Development Code in one figure. Most of the changes that are being proposed are minor glitch amendments, typographic errors and so forth, and the one figure actually was a duplicate of another one in there. And so, but three of the subsections have more substantial changes that address the directives that came out of the commission. And I'm sorry, could you go one back, please? I just wanted to point out these two locations here. The bottom right is showing a commercial use that was annexed into the city and had a chain link fence with barbed wire on top, which is not allowed. And when they went to replace the fence material, we required them to put up the opaque PVC vinyl fence. And you can see how it improves the screening of their outdoor storage immensely. Next. So the most significant change proposed is to this subsection in Chapter 10, which is with the landscape standards. And this section is clarifying that chain link fencing is allowed in single-family residential, institutional, industrial, transportation, utility, preservation, and recreation applications. And it also provides the development control officer with the flexibility to allow chain link fences where commercial uses abut commercial uses, which normally would require a type A buffer, which is also an opaque fence. So there's some flexibility here, and the development control officer can make that decision on a case-by-case basis as staff review site plans and so forth. But also in this, where other non-residential uses which are permitted to have chain link fence, like the listing above with the institutional, industrial. So this photograph illustrates how there's an industrial land use on the left side and a commercial heavy use on the right with the gas station, and they're allowed to put in the chain link fence between them if they choose to. Otherwise, we would have required some kind of opaque fencing, but that will be determined on a case-by-case basis. Next. Oops. Sorry, that really jumped. Keep going. Oh, there you go. Whoop.
Touchy.
Someone's letting me go forward, sorry.
See, it should be slide number 6. Maybe you have to point it that way.
Battery died.
Okay. Okay, slide 6, thank you. Okay, so slide 6 shows, again, this is a commercial general property on the right that's abutting a residential low property to the left. And as you can see, how important it is to have, an opaque fence buffering like the
parking area that's shown here. And so in this case, the residential low properties would be allowed to have chain link, but I would probably be unlikely that the development control officer would approve chain link along here if the developer of the shopping plaza requested. So that's just an illustration. Next, please. Slide 7, thank you. Okay, so the next subsection that was under the Commission's directive was in the accessory use, Chapter 16, and single-family properties are now exempt from requiring permitting for maintenance or replacement of fencing with like-for-like. And the repairs, we put a limit on the amount, the length of the repairs can't exceed 10 feet, which include 2 posts. And that also applies to the fence access gates may not exceed 6 feet in length. And swimming pool barriers are not exempt from this permitting requirement. But if a homeowner, for example, needed to replace a fairly insignificant section of fence, they wouldn't have to come in for a permit. Next, please. Okay, and then the third subsection, also with Chapter 16, clarifies that the orientation of fences and walls that they must be constructed and installed with a finished side, which is considered the good side, facing towards the exterior or of the adjoining property. So this illustration shows the proper way a fence should be installed. The person owning this property has installed the wooden fence with the more industrial-looking side towards their property. So for fences and walls between adjoining properties, this requirement may be waived by the development control officer with a written signed approval from the adjoining property owners. And we sometimes have this case come up when, for whatever reason, they maybe they're replacing the panels and they can't put the fence up with the posts the correct way, so we do get occasionally these requests in. So if the adjoining property owner signs an approval, the development control officer would have the ability to waive that requirement. Next, please. So staff recommends approval of the ordinance 2021-55 to amend the subsections of the Comprehensive Development Code and regarding the standards for the fences, walls, and other man-made barriers. And all the sections of the code are listed here. But again, the main ones are those 3 that I went over. Next. Okay, next step. So the planning board recommended approval 6-0 at the public hearing in July of 2021, and this is the first reading for City Commission, and if approved at this first reading, it will go to a second and final reading and public hearing in October 19th of 2021. Next. Okay, and staff is open for any questions.
Ordinance number 2021-55, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the City of Largo Comprehensive Development Code by amending subsections 10.5.2.c2c, 10.5.2d11d, 10.5.2d15, 10.5.2.f, 16.3.2, 16.3.3, 16.3.4b2, 16.3.4.b6, 16.3.4d, 16.3.4.e, and Figure 16-3 to revise buffer landscape requirements, landscaping standards, permitted deviations from required landscape plantings, building permit requirements, and construction standards for fences, walls, and other man-made barriers as accessory uses, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
I have no cards.
Vice Mayor Robinson.
Thank you. Just real quick. When it comes to replacing a fence and So regarding section 16.3.3, so the replacement of small sections of fence is fantastic. I think that's kind of some of the direction we're, probably as good as you could get to that direction, close to as you could get to the direction that we gave. Anyhow, when it comes to swimming pool barrier, explain what that is, because I've lived in my home for almost 20 years, and I have a pool, and I didn't know that this was a thing until I just replaced my fence. So can you explain that? And when it comes to this entire, especially this repair section here, because the general public is going to need to know that. Some people probably don't care, but whatever, or how are we going to notify people, the residents of Largo, that they're able to now replace some fence? Maybe they, didn't know that in the past, but they're able to replace sections of fence without having to go through the permit process. So most importantly, just explain the pool barrier.
Yeah. The pool barrier is a Florida building code requirement, from what I understand. So there's very specific guidelines that dictate, the height of in the construction, I believe. But I'm not a specialist on the building code. But I know we had input from the building department, and that was one thing they requested, that we make sure, is put there as an exempt.
So my understanding, and again, I had no idea about this until Largo came out to do an inspection on my fence that was installed. That in a gate it has to close on its own. There has to be 2 barriers, so a fence is considered one of those barriers. So for my house example, I have the fence and then a pool enclosure. So those are the 2 barriers to get to the pool. So obviously, this is, if with input from the building department, makes a lot of sense. And again, I had no idea that was even a thing. I mean, I've had a fence up there the entire time, but I probably wasn't up to code because it didn't close until I got this new fence. So,
yes. And the second
yes, thank you.
portion of your question is, I would imagine, like, our community standards group often has, interaction with residents when they have fences that are in disrepair. So I would imagine we'll make sure that they are aware of these code revisions and that they're, informing the homeowners or commercial properties know that this is an option. As Alicia pointed out, we can also put up on the website, we have a FAQ section for fences and permitting, and so we can certainly add that as well.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. And I know this is a lot of hard work with a lot of input from probably a lot of people. So, coming to this point's been a lot, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. In the acceptable materials, walls and fences within buffers, and the acceptable materials, we have concrete, aggregate, stucco, brick, stone, PVC, or glass block. It says include. Is that the only materials, except for, of course, chain link where it's allowed? Are those the only acceptable materials?
Yes, as specified in the code. I mean, we've had a few instances with, again, community standards where people have put up some questionable type of materials for fencing and, makeshift kind of pallets and so forth. And so we don't want to encourage those types of inappropriate materials. So as specified in the code, that is, those would be required for any fencing.
Is there an exception, or would it be possible for like a metal fence, especially in an opaque barrier? Would metal be acceptable? I'm in an industrial area. I'm abutting a residential multifamily. I need to put up a fence, but PVC is not going to get the job done, and I don't want to put up glass brick. So would that be, an exception that would be allowed?
Sure, yeah, if Alicia.
Sorry, you have one microphone. And I believe, Commissioner, you said metal?
Metal.
Okay.
METAL,
Okay.
heavy metal.
We actually see a lot of times developers want to have the wrought iron look, metal, aluminum, I believe is what it's actually made out of. But those typically are not opaque fences, so you can see through them. We haven't had any instances that I'm aware of where it's a solid metal fence, that it would be part of the buffer. But if it is part of a right-of-way street-facing side of the buffer, we would allow for a metal non-opaque fence so that you can see into the property. So that's very common. It's not specifically listed as one of the buffering fences, but it does provide flexibility in the code that a fence can actually be waived on street-facing sides. So there's a little bit more flexibility on the right-of-ways.
Yeah, we're talking about, in this case, a decorative fence, but I was actually asking about an opaque fence. So
Okay, an opaque metal fence.
Because I would know some business owners who would say, a PVC fence is not going to get the job done, and I really don't feel like paying for a concrete fence. But that's something that can be discussed down the road. Metal right now for opaque is just, off the table. Correct?
Right, it's not part of the approved materials.
And now the category is of silly questions. So I'm a homeowner, I have a wooden fence, and it needs a lot of repairs, and I can put up 10 linear feet without a permit. Is there a time restraint on that? So here's the example. I'm going to get around the permitting process. I'm going to put up one section this week, and next Saturday I'm going down to buy another section, and a week later I'm going down to buy another section, and within the next 90 days I've got a new fence. Is there a time restraint, or is there someone that that says, no, you can't do that?
We don't have the time restraint currently, and if they really were to circumvent the intent of the code, we could ask, if someone were to see this happening on a property, community standards could definitely take a look and say, you're not really meeting the intent. The intent was for the repair to be, done, in this length of the fence. So we could definitely have community standards look into it if that's what they're planning to do, but we haven't identified a time frame.
Somebody would have to report in the community standards, and they would have to give their name and address to do that, right? Well, really, they would.
No, I know.
You know what the law says, right?
I do. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for putting up with my picayune questions.
Thank you. I had a question about, I think it's 15F. So it's the visual relief from long expanses of walls, and excess of 75 feet, they have to do something interesting with the fence, something along those lines. Does that apply to just commercial fences, or is that all fences longer than 75 feet?
That would be all fences,
So if
yes.
somebody has a 75-foot backyard and they have a wooden stockade fence, this tells me that they have to put something that's interesting along that 75-yard run. Is that what we're going for?
Well, it says walls, so I'm believing we're just doing, if it's a solid wall like you would have around a subdivision sometimes, usually they'll have,
Columns or something on it?
Yes.
If it's like a block wall?
If it's a block wall, correct.
That's good. I didn't see that it was walls, not fences all around. Thank you for putting the repairs thing. I really appreciate that. I think that's important because it gets done anyway. For the chain link fences on commercial properties, is there any consideration as to the size of the property? I think that it seems to me that it might be more appropriate for large expanse commercial properties rather than a tight little compact commercial property that may abut a couple commercial, but might have an alley in the background or in the back, like some properties right over here, for example. Is there any consideration as to the size of the parcel?
No, there's not, and it's really going to be dictated by what the adjacent or abutting land use is, so.
So is there any, because I know that when we originally talked about this, I think there was some mention to, large parcels should have, it costs a heck of a lot more to put some of the fences up that aren't chain link. And if your parcel's 50 by 50 on East Bay Drive, and you abut a commercial, maybe you could put something other than a chain link fence. That's my personal opinion. So I wouldn't mind looking at having some type of threshold, the parcels over an acre, for example. Was it one more? Oh, there's another thing that says, and this I think is for fence installation. If I'm not misunderstanding this, I don't believe that the Florida Building Code has fence, it's silent on fences in this county, I think. I think in South Florida, there's fence requirements for building. So although I'm perfectly fine with requiring a permit for installation of a fence, I think calling it a building permit when there's no words in the Florida Building Code that somebody has to adhere to is problematic, and a couple examples. If I'm a business owner and I want to put a 4-foot fence, a decorative fence in the front of my business, and I have permission from the landowner, and it's a 4-foot fence. If it's a building code, you're not going to be able to do that because of Florida law. Or a building permit, you're not going to be able to do that because it's Florida law. If it was a fence permit, you would be able to. Similar in signs. If you have to get a building permit to put a sign up, you can't do it as a tenant, even if you have permission or whatever. But we also have sign permits. If somebody's putting a decal on their window, they can just get a sign permit that doesn't trigger a building permit. So I think that we should consider not calling it a building permit unless they're building something that requires a permit, like a block wall or a block fence. Whatever does trigger a building permit. I know a wooden stockade fence does not in this county, at least not yet. I mean, maybe another few hurricanes and it might. So I think that we should take a look at that.
Okay.
I think that's all that I have. Thank you. Commissioner Hulk.
I'm sorry. I found it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, would you like to amend that language? Would you like someone to offer an amendment to that language now, or just ask staff to?
So this is first reading. If you could look into those suggestions, and if there's a problem with those suggestions, I'd like to know what the problem is. I don't think that I necessarily need to amend it. If it causes us to have to take it up on first reading again, it is what it is. But I'm not. So my thing is, I don't necessarily want to amend it if there's going to be if staff thinks there's going to be a problem.
Okay. Well, we will get with the building official to discuss that. And I know we refer to them as building permits, but I think they're also kind of generic development permits. But it makes more sense to call it a fence permit because of the building code. We'll certainly, we can change the language in here.
So I imagine that some fences would require a building permit, and some wouldn't. According to the Florida Building Code. So,
Mayor, I'll allow staff to address the one particular issue with the building official on that nuance, but to answer Commissioner Gerard's question and your question about whether or not it would need to go back on first reading, the title of the ordinance does include the characterization as building permit requirements, and generally when we change the title, we go back to first reading. So I just did want to point that out, subject to the vetting by staff with regard to the specifics of the differences between the two. I just did want to point that out to the commission since it's used in the title.
So
So it may come back to you if that issue, I guess if that issue is vetted by staff and it's a concern, then it would come back to you on first reading again if that change is made.
So if we were to amend it today to make it a fence permit and not a building permit unless required, and
It would come back to you for first reading.
it would next time? Okay, so either way, it's a potential that it's going to be first reading next time.
If you change, yes, if the commission directs the name to change, then changing the title requires that.
Only thing we do is just kick this down the road a month or whatever it is. I mean, that's not and maybe the cost of advertising it again. Or probably hasn't even been advertised yet.
Do you advertise before second reading or first?
Before second.
Yes, so
Right, so-
it hasn't been advertised yet.
If that causes, I have no concern with that.
Okay, unless there's other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2021-55 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on October 19th, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I am just going to say one more thing, because that's one thing I missed, was I also really appreciate the good side. If two neighbors are in agreement, for years and years and years, we haven't been able, they come in and say, everybody's fine with this fence looking, nobody will see it but us, and we tell them, you got to turn it around. So we'll be able to get away from doing that from now on, so I appreciate that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Day, do you have anything for us today?
I do not, just that it's good to see y'all. And it's
Thank-
kind of awkward to talk with this microphone, so.
Thank you. We're going to put a new microphone in next year's budget for the city attorney, but thank you for being
Like
here.
I'm going to be in the concert at CPAC or something.
Commissioner Smith,
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Finger.
Just want to say that to everybody who was included under the ceremonial items, congratulations, and you may not see us smiling behind our masks, but we are, and appreciate all your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. At the last regular meeting, I asked for staff to look into whether the city's self-insurance program will be affected by some of the moves to either increase premiums or maybe not even cover unvaccinated people who are hospitalized. I'm wondering if we got any report on that, and also, have we learned anything about the questions about the Bayhead complex?
I don't have a follow-up right now on the Bayhead complex. On the issue of the health insurance, we have requested from the administrator of the health insurance program what the COVID-related costs have been to the health insurance. So they're working on that. They don't have it to us yet. At this point, they said they would be unable to determine what the actual impact would be on future premiums.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Robinson.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to see if there might be any interest from the city commission as a group, as well as Chris Hawks, our intergovernmental relations coordinator, and maybe some city staff in traveling to Tallahassee this year. The Suncoast League of Cities has, for the last couple of years, had a travel program where we have traveled to Tallahassee, a couple members every week during session. We're going to expand that under my direction this year to expand it to committee weeks as well. So my question would be, and I've talked to Chris Hawks about this briefly prior to this meeting, would be to see if there would be any interest in maybe going up in committee week, the last committee week, which is November 29th through December, or the week of November 29th. Generally, I'm in Tallahassee quite a bit during the session. I generally go up Monday and come back Wednesday. I think if we had a larger contingency from the city of Largo, probably same schedule, but during committee weeks might be a better time for us to be there because there's a little bit less action in Tallahassee and probably get a little bit more FaceTime with our legislators and kind of, be a part of the process. So nothing set in stone right now. Probably the dates, probably that week is probably the week we're going to go. But if there's any interest, again, it'd be great to have several members go if we can, and we can coordinate that through whoever gets paid to do that. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of put that bug in everybody's ear, and maybe we can have some more discussions here in the next couple of weeks about that.
Yeah, certainly, I think it's a good idea. If that particular week doesn't work for me, I certainly would be willing to go up there on my own at a different time when I can go and talk to some folks as well.
Right.
To kind of lobby for what we're trying to keep them from doing or get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
No, sir, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hulk.
I would definitely be interested in that. I did get the email about that. I think it's important for all of us to definitely put ideas in the ears of our legislators. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carroll.
Yeah, I'm sure, Vice Mayor, you're aware that I would take an assignment to go up to Tallahassee whenever the schedule permits. But I also would like to see some people who haven't gone before get the opportunity to go. It's definitely worthwhile, and it definitely moves the ball for our issues here in the city of Largo. So sign me up, and I encourage everybody else to experience it as well. And then the second thing, this issue with the Brookside Subdivision, I'd like to bring that up. You walk away from that discussion sometimes, or I did anyway. We have a deep desire to stick to and abide by our strategic plan and connectivity and all those things, and I think that's admirable. I think we should be doing that. But I also like to think win-win, and I think we're taking a look at something that's a symptom and not necessarily the problem, because what we have identified as a problem is a really substandard or neglected city park on the other side of that fence. So I'm not sure, but I think it might be appropriate to have this come to us in a work session with, instead of a bunch of questions, maybe we have some answers and suggestions how we might find a win-win, get this problem resolved, because I do appreciate the fact that the residents of Brookside come in and clearly articulate their concerns. I don't want to chip up a city right away. I'm not saying that, but I would like to know what other solutions might be out there that we haven't heard yet. And I guess I'm just asking if there's any interest besides from me to have that as a work session item. Other than that, I have nothing.
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
Yep. I agree totally with John. There's a lot of questions that were not answered, or they had two answers.
Right.
Per se. So I'm totally in agreement with Commissioner Carroll.
Yeah, I think we're pretty unanimous up here to discuss the issues that we're having with Northwest Park, and you hit on most of the things that I have written down here to talk about, along with Brookside Villas. Look at Northwest Park, look at the issues that they're having there, and see what we can do to help eliminate them. And I think that staff from a couple different departments can kind of work together as a team to focus on things that we can do to eliminate or greatly reduce this problem. We could get rid of the sidewalk, and some of those problems may still happen. But I think that it's incumbent on us as the elected officials here in Largo to work to improve that area so that the folks that live there don't have these issues. So I look forward to that conversation. And I'd like to thank you all for coming out and pleading pleading your case and talking to us respectfully and giving us your stories, and we hope to help fix the problem moving forward. So thank you. Mr. Schubert.
Yes, staff looks forward to having that discussion as well on Northwest Park. We've begun some very preliminary discussions on our part, and we recognize that there are certainly things we could do to enhance that park and the overall neighborhood. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any action items?
I had two things. A request by Commissioner Smith that sustainability initiatives be included in the development agreement negotiations with 614 Woodrow Ave LLC, and a request by Commissioner Carroll that a discussion of Northwest Park and issues around the park be scheduled for a work session.
Perfect. Was there anything else from the commission? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.